Hi everyone. Before you proceed further into the webinar, I want to make a quick announcement. This webinar is a subset of a larger course or a bigger course which you see right on the in the screen, React 18, Redux and TypeScript. This webinar is a hands-on session, so it doesn't cover a lot of theory, but if you are looking into deep dive of Redux, React and TypeScript and starting from scratch and if you want to learn more, then this course is for you. You will find the link for registration in the description of this video. And I just quickly want to give you an overview of what we are going to cover in this course. Uh, so there's we will start with JavaScript refresher, then we will have TypeScript basics, and we will also cover TypeScript advanced, which some part of TypeScript advanced you will see in the webinar further as well. Then we will start React, and towards the end we will see the Redux as well as Redux Toolkit. And along the course we will build three projects: uh, Jira Clone, a tracker which is for Indian stock market, and as well as a Dear Diary project. There will be a fourth project, which is a capstone project that you will be building using the things that you have learned in the course. And at the end, we will be providing you certificates. To learn more about this course, please go to the link provided in the description. And now you can continue with the webinar. Okay, so recording has started. I don't see any question in chat. So yeah, maybe let's start. Let's see. Okay, I hope my VS Code screen is visible to you. So let me stop this. First and basics. Let us start a React project. Okay, so we will be using a tool that is called Create React App. So I hope you can see I'm writing in the terminal here, npx. Npx is a tool that comes along with npm to, without installing a package, you can actually use it. So using npx, I'll be using this package called Create React App. What this do is this will set up a basic React app for me without me doing many of these configurations. It will do a basic bare minimal configuration and just give the app to me so that I can directly start uh, building my app rather than focus on the configuration. Now, because this is a TypeScript session, we will be if you don't use this flag here called template equal to TypeScript, then it will use JavaScript instead. It will set up the app in JavaScript, but we want TypeScript, so I will use TypeScript. I also want you to use npm here instead of yarn, so I will also use this flag. Before these flags, I have to give a name to my application, so I will just say webinar app or crypto app. Let's call it crypto app. You can name it anything you want. It will be the folder and the app name. So that is done. So I will now just hit enter. Now this command is going to take some time depending on your computation speed and internet speed as well, because it is going to install plenty of packages. So just wait until this is done. But you are already seeing a folder here called crypto app. If I open it, it is now putting these files one by one. I see a package itself, but in a while you will also start to see many more files. And for some people, sometimes this is stuck. So don't worry, just let it complete, give it a minute or two. And if it is still stuck, then just, uh, just restart with a new terminal and try the command again. Sometimes it happens that, it's stuck due to internet fluctuation or something like that. So just feel free to redo the command. Okay, so we are here. I see an application called Crypto App. It has bunch of files. So let's start with a basic README. So README is basic information about how to use this app. What are the basic commands? You see npm start, npm test. These are the commands that are available in this application, and these are actually npm commands. So if you open package.json file, package.json is a file where all your dependencies are listed, as well as some other metadata about the project, like npm scripts. So if you do npm start, uh, that's a script that actually internally calls this React scripts. Now, React script is a package that helps us to start React application in development mode using a Webpack server, Webpack development server. So, as I code, if I save it, I will automatically see that change in my application without, restarting the application. So that's the Webpack dev server. Okay. Let me Cool. So that's package done. Now let's directly jump into source. I see a bunch of files, so I'm going to delete the unnecessary ones and just focus on the bare minimum stuff. So let me just quickly delete a few files here. We don't need web vitals, and we don't need this SVG. And yeah. So let's say index file. Because I deleted this file, so let's remove this. And I'm going to change this a little bit. Uh, don't worry if you don't understand it right now. It's not necessary. Okay. All right. So this is what I have in the index. So this is the entry point of our React application. This is the entry point because that's where your React application starts. What it do is there is a package. So there is a React package called React, and then there is a React package called React DOM. React is basic library, where all the React algorithms, diffing algorithm, and basically the algorithm that React is based on is developed. And React DOM is the application that interacts with the DOM. DOM is the document object model of the browser. That's how it interacts with React. That's all the logic is written in there. So what we do is we create a root. Root is basically the if you imagine your whole uh, React application as a tree, then this is the root of the tree. The very first node. What we do is we do document dot get element by ID. There is a assume that in the HTML page is some sort of element that has ID as root. We get that element and we render our application inside that app. Okay, we get that element first, we create the root, and then we do root dot render app. App is the React component, which we will see in a moment. And where this is coming from, if you go to public and there is an index.html file. This is the index.html file that is served to the browser initially when your React app starts or the loads for the first time. You see there is a div with ID root. That's what we are trying to get here with element ID. And then inside this div, you will see right now this is empty. But when I will show you in the browser, if I do inspect element, you will see our React application will be rendered inside somewhere here. Okay. And this is the logic to do that. Now let's jump into the app component. This is the component that's the basic root component of our application. Now here it has you will see that, let me collapse this. You will see that there is app is a function. We are exporting that function. Let me actually do a name export here. It doesn't matter. It's only a personal preference. A React import is not necessary. You can get rid of that. Logo, we have deleted it, so get rid of that. Um, you can get rid of this as well. So what you see is you see HTML looking a code something that looks like HTML, right? But this technically is not HTML. This is JSX, JavaScript XML. But assume that it looks fairly similar to HTML with a few gotchas, or I would say tweaks. For example, in HTML, the way you give class to any HTML, you use class equal to this, right? You in HTML you write div and then class equal to something. But in React, you cannot use the class keyword here because class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript, right? For classes and function, if I write class, you see it's a reserved keyword. So that's why what they did is they come up with this name called class name. Instead of class, you have to specify class name, and everything else, pretty much remains the same, right? So this is the the basic app. I will get rid of all of this and only have, let's say, a div with hello there. Okay, and then I'm also going to remove the class name because I don't need it. By the way, you see there is a app CSS here. I've deleted it, but there you will also see there is a index.css as well, which I am importing in index.tsx file. The entry point, I'm importing an index CSS file. So you see, I can import TypeScript file as well, JavaScript file as well, CSS file as well, all in the same file, and that is allowed by tools and loaders, something like Webpack and Babel and these kind of tools. They allow us to do these. You don't have to get into that right now, but get that these are allowed. These tools allows us to do that. Now, because I can write any CSS here, and I'm importing it here, so this will be injected in my page, and this is like a global CSS. Whatever I write here applies to the whole of the application. Okay. So yeah, that's the CSS. This is the app. Now let's start our application. Okay. I think we have covered the basics. So let's start our application. So the way you do it is just run npm start. That's the command you need. And if you hit enter, and if there is no error in your application will be available at localhost 3000. So it is just compiling it, and in a moment you will see your application. So you see hello there. And if I just do inspect on this one, you see there is a div, and in public folder I showed you it was empty, but here our actual app which I've written here div, this one, this is rendered, and that's what this entry point did. It just rendered our application inside that div, and all rest of the application will be in the same div only. Cool. So that's the basics of React, JSX, and how you write your code, what is the entry point, and how you start your application. I'll stop here to see if there are any questions at all. Otherwise, let's move on to the next thing. And I will also, stop my camera just to save some bandwidth, and I don't want any bandwidth issues from my end. I want this webinar to go as smooth as possible, so I'll just stop the camera. But yeah. So let's see. Yeah, for any questions, Alok and Mihir are here, so they'll be addressing these. But if you still have any question, if you want to ask me, just raise your hand, or you can, unmute yourself and ask. Can you explain React scripts? So React scripts is a package assume that React scripts was not there. So what you had to do was start the application in a development mode, and also enable something called reloading. What that is like, if, for example, let's say I change I there Ajay. I change it here and I save it. Now this change will automatically appear here. This is hot reloading. As I go and change my files, these changes are reflected here. But if React scripts or these configuration was not done for you, you would have to do these configurations from by yourself. But you don't want to get stuck in these kind of things, right? And this doesn't bring too much value for the ultimate developer who want to just build the application. So these are something that these packages handle for you, and you don't have to worry about this, right? You just focus on the actual business logic, the application development. So yeah, that's the package. um, yep. So let's see. So we have started that application. Now let's start progressing towards our crypto dashboard that we are going to build today. So for that, first I will introduce you to the API. Which API we are going to use, and I'm also going to just tell you about basic requirements of the application, what we want to achieve or what we want to see in the end application, and then we will actually start the development. So I hope everyone is aware about cryptocurrencies, and the one of the, I think arguably the most famous one is Bitcoin. So if you even write BTC, it's probably going to come as Bitcoin. Yeah. So see, this is Bitcoin, and It's a cryptocurrency. So there is a price for this Bitcoin. This is the price right now for Bitcoin in INR. I can even change this to, let's say dollar, because we will be showing prices in dollars. So yeah, let's go with dollar. So today's price is like 28,326.40, right? That's price right now. What we want to do is, right, we want to be able to track the prices for these cryptocurrencies that we are interested in. For example, let's say I'm interested in Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency, and let's also say I'm also interested in Ethereum, right? So I think Ethereum Ethereum price is this much INR. So let's say I'm interested in these two cryptocurrencies. So I want an application that tells me the price right now on some exchange of these two cryptocurrencies. And the exchange, for example, in India, we have BSE, NSE, these are exchanges. Uh, so that's where we want to fetch some data from exchanges, the latest price information from the exchange, and show this in the application for all the cryptocurrencies that a user or whoever is using the application is interested in. For that, we will be using Coinbase API. So Coinbase, let me just quickly Google Coinbase. So it's a company that operates in cryptocurrency exchange platforms. So it's an exchange, and people buy and sell all kind of cryptocurrencies on their platform. So they, because they are exchange, they show you the latest price as well for these cryptocurrencies, and they have a public API. So I will be using something called WebSocket API for this one, WebSocket. And by the way, we are going to use and see the use of how to use WebSockets with React as well. So that's also covered in this webinar. That's something that many people don't know because they don't get to interact with WebSockets much. They pretty much do like fetch and HTTP calls. So this is something you'll see today. So let's see. If I show you the endpoints for these, WebSocket API, you will see that like post this webinar, you can also explore this API yourself. But overall, this is the endpoint for this uh, public API. You see, instead of HTTP, it is WSS. That WS stands for WebSocket and S stands for secure. Just like HTTP and HTTPS, we have WS and WSS, like WebSocket secure, right? And then the endpoint where this WebSocket server is present. So what we want to do is we want to be able to connect to this WebSocket server inside our React application. And then because it's a WebSocket connection, server can send message without the client asking for it. So the Coinbase server will keep on giving us the latest price of the cryptocurrencies that we asked it for. For example, I want to know about Bitcoin and or the Ethereum. Then it will keep on giving me the latest prices, the latest sell price as well as latest buy price for these two cryptocurrencies, right? And this is so in WebSockets we have something called channels. So their API exposes channels. If you go to channel section, you'll be able to, let me zoom in a bit. You will be able to see all the channels that they support. There are plenty of channels, but what we want is something called ticker channel. Ticker is basically the symbol, basically, if you imagine. For example, the way you use is you send this as the request in WebSocket connection. When the moment you establish your WebSocket connection, you say that I want to subscribe for on channel ticker for these two symbols, or what they call it, product IDs. You will see me using symbol as the term. Those are two interchangeable terms here. If I say symbol, assuming that this is what it means, I want to be able to subscribe to these two. And what Coinbase API is going to send you back is this message, and they are going to send it anytime there is a change. As soon as they have changed, server will push the message to the WebSocket connection and we will get it. Okay. And we don't have to ask it for an interval. Like it's not like I'm asking for this data every 1 second or an interval. No, it's a WebSocket connection. So they send us as soon as they have the information to broadcast. And this is the message is going to look like. And what we are looking for is the price and the side. if it's a buy price or a sell price. If it's sell, then it will be sell. Otherwise, it will be buy, and then we are looking for price. And this is the price. It's in USD, and we want to show this on the application. For example, if I want it for BTC and Ethereum, I want the selling price, buying price of Ethereum and BTC on my website. So yeah, that's the API. I hope you are now overall you have the idea of what we are going to build, why what we are going to build, and which is the API that and how we are going to use this WebSocket API, right? So and because, just to add a little more complexity to it, let's also, instead of writing all this CSS from scratch and just save us some time, let's also use a design library. I'm going to use something called Ant Design. Material UI is also an option. There are plenty of other options like Tailwind and whatnot. You can use any you want. I'm just going to use Ant Design for now. Uh, and then so let me just quickly show you. It gives you React components that are styled in very nice way, very elegant way, and then we are going to use this in our application. So let me just quickly show you, one of the few of these components. For example, let's say this is a breadcrumb. We could have, let's say, something called date picker. This is a date picker. So there are like plenty of so many components here. We'll be using a few of these, and let's see how we can start installing it. So if you go to development section and go to use and create React app, they have a specific section for this one. They tell you how to use it. So first, we have already created our React app, so we can skip this section. Directly come to the section where you add and design. They are using Yarn, but we will be using NPM. So let me install these. NPM I dash save, and now this is going to take a moment. So let me show you which component I'm going to use. So I'm going to use a layout component in here, which allows me to have a bare minimal layout in the application. And there are so many layouts here. For example, for dashboard as you would sometimes have a side nav or top nav and some content here. There are plenty of kind of navigations here. I'm going to use a bare minimal here, which just only have a head and just content, right? So if you want this one, click on this show code button, and it will show you the code. And we are using TypeScript, so it will show me the TypeScript code, and you can just copy paste it and tweak it accordingly. So I'm just gonna copy paste it. Let me do and design installation once, and then I will show you. So and design is installed. There is one little step that you have to do. You have to import this CSS and import this in the index, which is the entry point of the application, so that this CSS is available for all of the application, all the pages, everything. And this is reset.css. What this do is it reset few of these options and give you a consistent experience of writing CSS. But like sometimes what these individual browsers, they add their own styles. There are some other unwanted styles as well. So this resets everything and give you like a baseline style to build upon. So it's good to import this one, and that's it. So we install the package, you added this, and you're good to go. Now we can start directly importing our React and design components. As I said, I'm going to use this layout component. So let me take this, and let's say now you see plenty of red because I have to import these. So let me just do some auto completion layout, and then header is actually layout dot header, and then there is content. So let's do layout dot content. I don't need a footer, so I'm just gonna get rid of footer. I also don't need breadcrumbs, so let's get rid of these. I'm going to say just hello for now, and then yeah, let's also take a menu. Menu also comes from and design. Then there are a bunch of options here. I will change it in a second. I don't have this class name, so you can get rid of these. I don't have a logo, so remove this. Anything else is bare minimum, right? So let's see. I have to, because I stopped the server, I have to start it again. npm start. Just give it a second, and it is refreshing right now. It sometimes takes some time, but we'll get there. Okay, we are there. So you see bunch of nav bars and a hello message. I don't want these nav bars. What I want are two pages. Let me explain those, why those two pages as well. And the way you do in this is specific to, how you use and design components. This is not React specific thing. What they expect is a items array with these objects, and then every one of these is supposed to have a key, which is a unique uh, uh, value to define this array element. So I'm just gonna say, and a label. Label is what you want to display. So I will have two navigation. One is called, let's say, latest prices, and then let me copy this. And another one I will say, let's say, settings. And the key, I'm just gonna, because this needs to be something unique, so I'm just going to just convert these labels into key as well, right? Save it, and then you see latest prices and settings. And these are, are two pages in our application. One is the idea here is to say that if you go to settings and you set which symbols you want to track the price for. For example, I want Bitcoin and Ethereum, so I go to settings, I set those there. And latest prices is the section page where if you come, you will see all the symbols you have selected. You should see the price, latest price for them using by the Coinbase API. Connect to it and you get the data. These are the two pages in our application. Now, how do you navigate to two pages? First, you need to create two pages. So I'm just going to create a directory here with name pages, and I'm going to create two pages. First one is latest prices .tsx. Now tsx is, by the way, the extension for, it's called like TypeScript XML. Uh, if you only create like .ts, then that will only allow you to write TypeScript code. But if you write tsx, then it will also allow you to write this JSX like code. And that extension is super important. Sometimes people miss the X, and then they are confused why they are getting syntax error, because you don't have an X in your extension. Right. So let me create the latest prices component, and let's say I will only return that latest prices, and then I will export the component. I'm only writing like bare minimal right now. We will complete this page later, just to show you that how to import it and switch between two pages. And I'm going to repeat it for the settings page, settings, and then settings. Now we have two pages. What we want is, if I click on this one, then first page should show. If I click on this one, then second page should show up, right? So to that, uh, there is, you can achieve this using routing, React router, and there are plenty of other libraries. To keep the scope of this webinar limited and due to time constraint, I'm not going to use React router here. I'm just going to use a state, right? So I will say selected page, and then set selected page. And I will explain this in a second. Use state. Yeah. Now, useState is a hook provided by React that allows you to maintain a state in your application. A state is a set of data that if you change it, you you would want to update your page, or I'm calling it a page, but you're basically your application. A state is some sort of data that you want to store in your application, as well as track the changes for it, so that every time you update the state of the application, you should see the latest state in the application. For example, let's say assume there is like a clock here. We build some sort of clock. Then clock, what happens? At every second, the timer updates, right? For example, it's 0, 1, then 0, 2, 0, 3 in clock. That's a state in your application. You store a state, and at every 1 second, you update that state, and also the latest state is rendered on the page. The second or the minute uh, timer, that is the state. So these kind of data that we have are basically state. In this one, what is my state? My state is I want to track which page is selected, whether this is selected or this is selected. So that's a state, and I'm storing it in the state. And use state, it gives me two things back, and it's you see I'm destructuring it like a tuple because that's how you destructure it. The first variable is the actual latest value of this state. Every time it changes, you will get late selected page is going to give you the latest value of the state. And set selected page is basically a function that allows you to change the value of the state. Right? When I will use it in a second, you will actually see, what do I mean by these two things. First, as I said, this is how you get the latest value of the state. So what I'm going to do is going to write a conditional statement here. And let me do some TypeScript here. What I'm going to do is useState can accept parameters here that can tell you what this state is going to look like, because we are using TypeScript here. So you can define a type, and a type is, I will say that a selected page can either be latest prices, or, and this is the or symbol, like pipe symbol is the or symbol, or it could be settings. And having just this much type safety allows us to have two things. First, type safety. Second, auto completion. You can give a default value to this state. The moment your application is loaded, what is the default value you want? Right now, we have not set the state to anything, right? So it is undefined. But if you want a default value, then you can provide that in the function argument here. And the moment I write string here, it will give me auto completion, because I have defined the type here. That's why. If I had not, then you will see that it will accept string, but it will not give me auto completion, because TypeScript doesn't know what kind of values it could have. So I'll just get back the types, and then uh, see that latest prices and settings both are there. I want that by default stay on latest prices page. And I will write a conditional here. If selected page is triple equal to latest prices, again, you see this auto completion is enabled by just this type safety only. If I did not have this, then it would not have given me uh, this auto completion and no type safety. So let's say latest prices, and basically when this condition is true, I want to render the latest prices page that we have. Okay. You see latest prices is defined here. I'm rendering that. Same, just copy paste it and then change this to settings, and then settings. Okay. Now, because this, selected stage, it could either be latest prices or be settings. It cannot be two things at the same time, right? So either this condition will be true and this will render, or this condition will be true and this will render. Both cannot render at the same time, because, it is simply not possible. Now I will save it and refresh. You will see that latest price is there, and our state is currently storing latest prices, and because it is true, it is rendering latest prices. Now, how do I update it? If I click on settings page, how do I update it, that state? That's what this function is for. So in menu, it accepts a prop, something called on change. Basically, the moment you change something, this component will give you the latest value, and value will be, if you see, actually not on change, I think it will be on something called, let me see, how do they, is it on click? Yeah, it will be instead of on change because user is going to click on something. So, and we want to capture that click. So it will be on click instead of on change, it will be click. And that will be value and then set selected page. What is the type of value? It is something called menu. And so if you want to see any type of the type of any data, you just hover over it, and in a second, TypeScript will show you, what is the type. It is menu info. Uh, and menu info has, if you do value dot, it will usually that it has DOM event, key path, and item. We want key. Key is basically, whatever we are giving it here, settings or latest prices, right? Uh, Here it is giving us errors. It says that value dot key is type is string, but set selected can only accept these two values because we have type defined it, either latest prices or settings. So that's what it is complaining about, that string is not assignable to these two. And because you know that this is something that we already know, we know it's going not an error. This is only TypeScript not being able to understand what we are trying to do here. And because TypeScript does not, we have not given it sufficient information. So in such cases, when you know that the error is, not really an error, you can safely ignore it. Then you just put a comment above it, write at the rate, and write TS expect error, and the error should will be gone. Basically, what I are trying to tell TypeScript is that expect an error here because we know that it's fine. We are asking you to ignore, basically kind of ignore this error. Okay. So yeah, if you click on it, that value will be stored in this state using this function. And as I said, state is something we want to update, and the moment we update it, we want the latest value. So the moment I call this function and update the state value, this whole component will re-render. Basically, the page will somehow refresh and re-render and use the latest selected value. So the moment it uses settings, this condition will become false, this condition will become true, and you will see settings page rendered. And let me show you. I save it. I'm going to click on settings now. And the moment I clicked it, you see settings page showed up. If I click on latest prices showed up. So, and that's how you basically use a state in your application. Uh, just let me do, instead of default selected keys as two, I will say that default selected key is actually latest um, prices itself. So that, the moment I refresh, I have this page as selected by default. And if I go to settings, I get settings, and then, I can switch back between these two pages. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So we have two pages set up. Now we will start working on these individual pages. I'll stop here to see if you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any question in chat. So yeah, let's move on. Is adding TS ignore error the only way? Well, no, that's not the only way. There are plenty of other ways too. For example, uh, you can write ignore as well, but I don't recommend using ignore. You should always prefer TS expect error instead of ignore. Or you don't want that, and you want to tell TypeScript that, hey, instead of string, treat it as latest what was that, latest prices. If you see that, TypeScript will, instead of treating it as string, you will see that it will, I'm asking it to treat it as this value instead, or as either this or either this. Now, because as I said, like TypeScript was complaining because it did not have sufficient information, but I have provided that information now, and now TypeScript will not complain at all, right? So that's another way. I hope that answered your question. Is this specific string a type? Yes. If let me show you. I'm just going to create a dummy type here. X equal to A as string, not strong string. Then you will see that If I create a object of type X, y that is X, then I can write anything here because any string is acceptable. But if I write it like this, let's say ABC, A and C, then you will see it complaining that only A and C can be assigned here, nothing else. It becomes like a enum value. Enum value, only these are allowed. If I write like A, D, E, F, only these two values are allowed. It becomes like a enum. And that's what I did here. I only want to allow these two values in selected page because I don't want I don't have any other values. So it's better to have that type safety here. Make sense? I was thinking that it's more like a enum. Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, it's a enum. Cool. Let's see. So I will move on now. So we have two pages now, and we want to let's start with settings as well as the latest prices. Now here, what we'll have? I want I want to store, let's say, whatever I store it on settings page. Let me set up the UI first, and then you'll get it better. Let's have a select component here, and let's say I want a multi-select. So I will have multi-select. It's very simple to use and design components. So I just go here mm, and import select. Mode is fine, allow clear is fine, style is fine, placeholder is fine, default value, ignore it, on change, ignore it. Options, let's see. So I want to say that in my application, I will allow only two kind of symbols, let's say Ethereum and Bitcoin. And of course, like this is we want to keep it configurable. So I'm going to have like a constants folder, constants index is not JS, sorry, TS. And I'm going to write uh, allowed symbols. And I will have either BTC, USD, or I think Ethereum is like ETH, USD. But I think I will check later, but this is what it is. And then I will export it. Now, the moment I define this array, you will see the type of array is string array. But if you if you want to have more type safety, you want that instead of this, I I only want to have these values in the array. There should be no other value allowed. That, and I want to reflect that in instead of string, it should have these specific values as enums. So you can write as this array as const. The moment you write as const, it will treat it as read-only enum value. It will treat read-only because this array is now constant. It cannot change, and its type is also defined as like this. And this is very powerful because now if you do, let me do this. Why? If I do 0, you will see that y is actually BTC USD. Instead of string any string, it is actually the exact value. TypeScript is able to understand that now because of this. You write 1, you get Ethereum. You write 3, you actually even get error that there is no element at index 3. And this is very powerful using this. Cool. So I've allowed these two symbols. I will get that as the options in my select. I will have to import it and then map symbol. Select option, expect you to give it a label. I think that's what it needs, a label and a value, right? So a symbol is there, a label and values. This is something specific to the select component and design, nothing React specific. You can, get to know about these on the page itself, what it expects. For example, option is the array. of label and value. So we have that. And if I go to, instead of 100%, let me do like maybe 300 pixel. So you see I have BTC and Ethereum. I can select these two and I can clear this whole thing and select one. So basically what I have on settings page, I want to maintain a state in my application that stores which symbols are selected here, right? So that I can use that state on latest prices page and fetch the data for from the API. Okay. Now let me design. I mean, maybe just prettify a bit more. Maybe so let's say apart from select, you can also. I'm just going to show you a few more components. There is also a component called typography in and design. You can write like title here. Let's say settings, and then title, and then you can also have like text, and then write like uh, select all the symbols that you wish to track the price for. Okay, if I save it, you'll see it is coming as inline. So maybe let me wrap it in a div that will bring it to the next line. Okay, so select all the symbols you track price for. You select these, and now the challenge is the state I have here. I want to somehow be able to use it on this component, which is latest prices, which is a separate component, in this file. Now, how do I get that? This is basically sharing components between two components. Now, there are many methods to do that. There is something called parent-child relationship. You store it in the parent and then you pass it down using prop drilling. You may have heard them. I'm just putting out these terms. So just, if this rings a bell or you have heard it somewhere. Um, but there's a like prop drilling, then there's something like context API, then having global stores like Redux. These are all the available options to us that allows us to share a state between multiple components, have like a global state. Okay, because uh, app state, this state we did, this was this is a local state. This is only available in app component, not in outside of app component. But here we want a state that is available in settings as well, so that we can set it here. And in latest prices, we can read that state and fetch the data using that state. That's where Redux will come in. As I said, there are multiple solutions. We are going to explore Redux because it's uh, one of the most popular option to solve such use cases. So yeah, let's start with Redux. And I hope I explained why the need for Redux. Why do we need it? What does it solve? And now we will actually start using it and set it up. Now Redux, let me just spoiler alert, Redux requires uh, some sort of boilerplate code here, but it's good only that the if you get it once and it's a pattern, you can apply it to have as many states as you want and it scales. So it's good to learn that overall pattern of how to structure your Redux application, and then just you can keep adding on more and more states. So be just just bear with me when I explain Redux, and then at the end of the application, you'll see. Before you using Redux, let me stop here to see if there are any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. So yeah, let's move on. So for Redux, sorry, you just search Redux and then yeah, go to get started, and then here you can install it. There's also something called Redux Toolkit that allows to remove plenty of boilerplate code and make it easy for developers to write Redux. But we will not explore Redux Toolkit in this webinar. We will use Redux Toolkit in the course itself. The course, I'll give more information at the end, but that's where we'll use Redux Toolkit. In here, we will explore the plain Redux. So yeah, just install Redux. So that's the first step. So let us do that. There is Redux, and then there is React Redux. So Redux is just a global state container that works independent of React. It can work with any application, any JavaScript application it can work with. It like Angular, Vue, whatever. And React Redux is the bindings between React and Redux. That's a separate library. So you have to install both. So let it complete. It's complete. So let's start with the basic usage. How do you set up Redux? So first, let's create a folder. And I'm going to just quickly explain the concepts in Redux as well as I write the code. First, there should be a folder, something called store.ts. What is a store? As I said, Redux is a global state container. That global state container is something called store. A store is basically, just a container where your whole state is stored. Stored as in, so store, where you store your state. So let's create a store variable. We have to create it using something called create store from Redux. Now you will see this warning that this is deprecated. They ask you to use toolkit instead, but you can safely ignore it if you don't want to use toolkit. You can safely ignore this. That's not an issue. You have to export this store, and I'll leave it for as now. For now, you have to give it something here. I'll show you what. But this is the store, and to be able to provide this store to whole of your application, you have to wrap your whole application. Go to index.tss, that's the entry point. Wrap it in a component called provider. It's called provider. It comes from React Redux. Store is coming from Redux because as I said, this is independent of React. This is React thing. React Redux. This is the binding. So you provide provider. Provider is, you, as the name suggests, you provide the access to store to your application. That's provider. And you have to give it the store variable. So you import that store variable from Redux and just give it here. And now your whole application, anything that is in here, inside application, which is, all the pages, app, or any further pages, anything else is inside app only. So all of them have access to store now. Save it. Now, as I said, it requires something. What is that something? Now, your application will have multiple state. There could be a let's say you are building some application that has let's say Gmail is an example. Gmail has plenty of states. There could be a state for user, whoever is the authenticated user who's using Gmail. That's you may want to store it in global store because you can, so that you can access it on multiple pages of Gmail or multiple components. Then there could be some notification state, so that you can show notification hide, and or at any point in time you can show notification. There could be a application level state, the settings in Gmail you have, for example, which layout you are using, these kind of things. So all there could the point I'm trying to make is there could be multiple states here. So for all of these, we will have something called as reducer folder. Let me write its plural, reducers. And for any state that you define, create a reducer for it. If there is a user state, then you define user reducer. If there's an app state, you define an app reducer. I'm going to define an app reducer here. And as I said, just copy paste it with the user, app.ts, user.ts, layout.ts, notification.ts, any kind of state you want, you just keep on copy pasting them. And change the logic as well, of course. And then here you create the reducer. I'm going to create it like, and then, show you the rest of the thing. App, let's name it as app reducer. And it's a function that takes two things, state and action. Right now it's any, but TypeScript is complaining that just give it some proper type. So we'll give the type in a moment, but it's a function. Let's export this function. And as I said, there could be multiple reducers here. There's app, there is, let's say user and whatnot. So you have to combine all of these in one place and then store it in, right? So what you do is something called, let's call it root reducer, root reducer, because this is like a root thing where you combine all of the other reducers. And you import this function called combine reducers from Redux and give it a name app and then app reducer. This is the object, and then export this root reducer. Basically, as I said multiple times, this is app. Let's say you had another user, so you would have user reducer and then notification and whatnot. Any app state you want, you keep on defining them here. I only have app for now, so that's that. And then this root reducer, you import in store and then just pass it here. So you combine them all in root reducer and then pass it to basically store. And then store is no longer giving any error, so store is complete. Now let's complete the app reducer itself. We left it here, right? So yeah, let's complete it. So let's define the because it's TypeScript, so let's define what the state is going to look like. What do I want to store? I want to store the symbols. Let's say I can call them picker symbols as well, or just symbols if you want, if you prefer that, symbols. I prefer symbols, and I only, because I only allow storing some limited set of. I can write like string array because let's say Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatnot. But if you want to restrict it to what it can have, and we are restricting it here, right? So what you can do is this is a TypeScript thing. You can import this, allow symbols. Let me import it first. I guess IntelliSense is not working, so let me write it by hand. Okay, and then do this type of allow symbols and then number. Now symbols can only have now two values, either BTC or Ethereum, nothing else. TypeScript won't allow it. Uh, and this, like, let me explain this one as well. So if you only do like type of, so let me show you what that gives first. If you want to see, what does it give, so you write like this. When you do type of, it gives you this read only, and then when you do number, it's basically that indexing. The way you index arrays is by using some sort of number, right, like 0 1. But instead of like actual 0, if you write number in general any type, then it will actually infer the individual values and create a enum and then show you that. So it's a basically a little trick uh, to have such sort of enums. Okay, so I want to store the symbols, and that's it, right? But yeah, that's about it. I don't need anything else. Now that's how my state looks like. And of course, in some other real world application, you could store as many states as you want. You could have arbitrary number of things here. That's the state. Because I also want an initial state, something like an empty state. So let me define the initial state that will have a type of app state, and it has symbols. Initially, I'm going to say, empty array. Oh, by the way, this is this, and then but I want to have like this, basically array of this. That's what I want. So symbols will be empty, empty array. And this is like a boilerplate stuff. So you initialize it with initial states. For example, when state is when the app loads, it will start with this initial state. Now that's covers our first parameter. What is this second parameter? Action. So let's also define the action in TypeScript first. If you're using JavaScript, you would not have to deal with these types, but it is good that you use and define these exact types. So it was called app state. It will be called app action. It will have two things: type, that will be something that I will type in a second, and then a payload, and payload will be something again. Now, and let me diffuse the type here. So all errors are handled. Now let me explain this whole thing first. What reducers do is there are two things here: a reducer and an action. Action is basically intent to update the state. Whenever I perform an action, I basically want to update a state. And reducer defines how you update that state. For example, here I could have, let's say, two kind of action. First, I want to update this symbol array to something I want, or I would want to clear this. For example, why you want to clear? For example, user logs out. So you would want to clear your whole application state, right? So that next time another user logs in, you will have new state. So that's why you would want clear state. So these are basically actions, and you define a type for it. Uh, so let's say I will call set symbols, and then payload is basically some data that you want to use to perform that action. Ho- To perform set symbols, what you would need? A symbols array, right? You would need this symbol array so that you can set it to a new value. So I will just give it this. And let's say you also want a clear action. So you define it like this type or this type. And in this one, you would write clear. And clear doesn't need any payload, right? I don't need any data to perform clear operation. So in that case, you can just totally skip it. Okay, so now action could be of two kind. Either it will be this type symbols and a payload, or it will be type clear, right? Now let's use that action to manipulate our string. First, you will write a switch statement on action type. You will write case. Either it will be set symbols or clear, right? Let's handle set symbol first. So to set symbols, what I want to do is just keep my previous state, basically spread my previous state, and set symbols. And by the way, let me also define the return type of that function. It will be app state only. You take state, basically this is like previous state, like previous or as in current state. This reducer takes current state, action you want to perform, and returns the next state. Basically, what state should look like after this action. So after this action, I want to update the symbols, right? To action dot payload. That will be passed from the outside, and whatever you are passing, I will set that in my state, and that's it. You have handled the action. Now I want to handle clear action as well. In clear, generally you just want to reset it to initial state, so you can return the initial state. I just want to return to initial state, and just also have a default case as well. Uh, that just returns the state. Basically, whatever is the current state, keep it that. I don't if the action doesn't match anything that we have defined, just keep the state as is. Don't change anything. So you just return the same state. Okay. So that's how you write reducers. And as I said, this seems like a boilerplate code, but that's about it. That's only what you need to learn. Now you can repeat it for as many states as you want: app state, user state, notification state. Only the type, the payload will change, and what you want to store in state. Everything else is pretty much the same. It's same boilerplate. Cool. So we have reducers, we have store, we have provided access to that store. Now these actions, we will see how these are written or how to perform these. So what's the first kind of action in for us? Let's go to settings page. What do we want to do here? First, I want to be able to access my latest state and provide it as the value in select, so that whatever is in my global state, that should be used in select, because that's what we have stored, so it should reflect that. So how do you basically now use this state that you have as a global state? So that's for that we are provided with the hook uh, from Redux. It's called something as use selector. Basic selector means you select what do you want to select from the store. It has access to the global store, or you can even call it state. Store or state, it's up to you. I call it, let's say, state. And to give this state a type, uh, what this global state of type of global state looks like. Let's define a type, something called root state. And this is just how you do it. Type of root reducer. You will see what is the type of root state. It's app and then app state. You know, the app state is exactly what we have defined in reducer. And now you can use this state multiple anywhere you want to use selector. So let's see. We tell TypeScript that state is of type root state. Let's say root state, and then symbols. And then what do I want from global state? I want state.app.symbols. That's the thing I want from state. I extract that value, store it in a variable called symbols. You can name it anything you want, X, Y, Z, doesn't matter. I only keep it symbols. Uh, and then I just provide it as a value in the select. Cool. So let me show you that this much works, and then we will proceed. It's gonna take a second to build and then refresh. So let's see if there are any questions until now. I know this is a lot of boilerplate. Just please bear with me. As I said, Redux, that's something that many people complain about Redux, that there's a lot of boilerplate code. But these patterns overall helps to define to have a consistent way of defining all the states. In which case, in default, you wrote return state. Uh, I might forget this. Yes, but on first note, yes, like when you see it for the first time, you'll forget it. But when you do it repetitively, even in one app, if you have like 4 or 5 states, you'll memorize this. Plus, this code, whatever we are writing in webinar, we will give you this code. The link to this code, we'll host it on public GitHub or GitHub, and then give you the code. Don't worry, you'll have access to the code. So you can see it, always refer there as well. So it's not a problem. Uh, so you say in default reload state, what is the difference between default and clear? Yeah, sure. Let me explain that. So let's go here. So I defined the initial state, which is the initial state when the app loads. You know, an initial state is something that you want to have like an empty state, because you initially don't know anything about the user. I don't know what symbols they want, so I just keep it empty. If you had a number, you would either could have null values or undefined values, or something that defines zero or nullish value for a data type. For strings, it could either have null defined or empty string or these kind of values. And when I clear, I want to clear basically take me back to initial state, as if I have reloaded this app, as if I have opened a new tab and reloaded this app. That's the state I want. So if you, let's say, log out a user, that's the state you want to go back to. So that's clear. State is default is when, let's say, this doesn't match. What does it going to do? It with nothing, right? If it doesn't match any of these actions that are defined by us, we don't want to change anything in the state. For example, let's say the current state looks like this: symbols. Let's say BTC USD. Clear is going to do this. It's going to reset it to initial. Return state is just keep going to keep it as is. I return the state I got just back. So it's going to stay as is. That's the difference between clear and this default case. And set symbols is basically if I give it payload as let's say total thing, whatever I give it, it will update that value. That's basically these kind of three actions we have defined. Does that make sense? Okay, got it. Also, I didn't understand when you define the return types using something like this. I did not. I'm not seeing the code in. Maybe Meet is not rendering. Meet chat is not rendering it. Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, I didn't write anything. I was just asking when you are adding like const app state, then it has a return state of app state. So you are using colon something like that. So that is something new for me.
Oh, you this one, like something
Yeah,
like this syntax. Yeah,
this
that's how
colon.
you define types. Basically, this is the variable name, and if you want to write a type for this, then you define colon and whatever is the type. For function, I also have a colon that defines the return type of this function. These are like that's how basically you define a type.
Okay, so you are saying if you have to mention return type of a particular function, then we have to use that colon. Is it something
Yes.
like we can return or something keyword? Is there any other keyword?
No. In
Okay.
fact, TypeScript is smart enough to understand what are you going. If I skip this much and hover over it, you will see that it's actually smart enough to know that I'm returning app state because this matches app state. It even infer that. But it is better to be explicit about it and mention it here. Uh, if you are new to TypeScript, I know this may look like alien code to you, some part of it maybe, but once you get familiar with TypeScript, and this is because of webinar, so I'm not going into depth. But in the course that we are going to announce, in there we'll start from TypeScript scratch. So you'll get to learn about these things of TypeScript there. But if you want to skip, you can skip that as well, and TypeScript will infer it for you. But it's better to be explicit about these types.
Understood. Understood.
Cool. Let's see. Any other questions? Symbol is an array we can define, create for a loop, and then pop elements to delete, right? But that's not effective for which. What do you mean by this? Can you explain allowed symbols number? Yep. So I know this is a bit of an advanced TypeScript. You could have done it like this: BTC, USD, and then Ethereum, USD. And that's it. You could have defined it like this. This is design. But I want to be able to reuse it so that if tomorrow I allow another thing here, I don't have to update the code here. Assume that this is a big application with 50,000 lines of code. You would not know where this variables is being where are I'm define anything at all. So it's better to have these defined it at one place and then reuse them as much as possible. So I wanted to infer this information here. So that's why I did it, this part. And as I explained, first, this is like a three-step process. First, you do type of, and if you want to see what this returns, is you just write a type and then you see y. This is read-only BTC this. You don't want this. You want individual array of individual elements. So first, you need to get the element first. Now this will give you enum. Now, this is like one value, but you want an array of symbols. So then you wrap the whole thing in an array. And now it will be array of this. So if I have some variable that says Z that is of type y, and I write array, you will see that only these two values are allowed here. No other values allowed. That's what this type is giving. Okay, make sense? Array of enums, I would say, not even strings, because you see, this is a strongly typed. This is something called what we call strongly typed because uh, uh, this is exactly specifying what it could be. It could not be any generic string. It could only be a string of either this or this. That's how specific it is. I could have write, just string array, and it would be acceptable. But then I cannot enforce. that only these two values are allowed. I could have write, ABC. That would be acceptable. Okay. Uh, but yeah, this, as I said, this is like advanced TypeScript for beginners. When you start with, string array, just, string array, and that's acceptable as a solution. But the moment you dig deeper into TypeScript, you start to see these things, and they give you more benefit of TypeScript. Cool. Let's move on. So our store is there. I hope my application is up and running. Yeah. Let's see. So I go to settings. I see it is empty. And I try to click on it, but it is not updating because the value is empty, so it is keeping it here. The symbols value is initially empty as we did state. Now here's what I want to do. The moment I select something here, that when I change something select, I want to update that state. That's where actions, we defined an action, right? Set symbols. How do you use it now? That's what we are going to see. Now, as I explained, action is something when you intend to change the state. That's basically an action. You perform an action, and then reducer will define how it is going to update. So action is you dispatch an action. What what I'm trying to say is dispatch. You understand what, like, the basic meaning of dispatch, right? It's like, hey, perform this action. Perform this action where type is something, the what we defined, and payload is this, and I want to go and perform this action. The way you tell that to Redux is basically dispatching action, right? Just like, if you order something, they dispatch your product, right? Just like that. Redux dispatch a read action, and then action get processed later. So the way you do it is you use a hook called dispatch, use dispatch, store it. It's a function, and then in dispatch you actually write whatever action you need to give it. Right? Just for example, for ours, it was uh, set symbols, right? And then payload was, let's say I want to set it to ABC. I'm just only writing it just to explain you. When you do this, it will actually, this action will be passed in here. Action, you'll also get current state, and then based on this action dot payload, you will get the next state. Basically, you update the state, and then state is updated. And because you are using uSelect here, the moment this state is updated, this function will re-render with the latest value. Okay. Now you could have you could have done it like this. Um, own change. Basically, whenever the value in select changes, I want the value and I want to dispatch it. And dispatch is, you see set symbols. You have to match it like this. Set symbols, right? I will explain a better way to do this, but for now, let me just explain it this way. And payload is whatever value you have just selected from on change, right? And that's it. So save it. And now you'll see. I select BTC, it is there. I select Ethereum, it is there, right? And I clear it, it is there. BTC, and I go to next page, and I'm going to come back to this page. You see, it is there. Even though component was unmounted and mounted again, when I go to other page, that component was gone, right? I come back here, and it is there because it is stored in a global state in Redux. So you get that value.
What
Now
if you
instead of, yep,
what
what
if you
if I
refresh?
Yes, yes, that's a perfectly valid question and something I'm going to address in a second. If I refresh this page, you'll see it is gone. Why it is gone? Because as I said, if you refresh, it will start with initial state, and initial state is empty. That's what it's going to start with. And I'm going to show you. Like if I write IABC, uh, TypeScript will complain because this is not allowed. I have strong typing here. Only these two are allowed. But I'm going to just for a second ignore it, and then you see ABC. Okay, let's revert this. Come back. Now, as I said, you would not want to generally do it this way because First, this is not reusable. If you want to uh, do this dispatching at 10 different places, which you sometimes need to do with many kind of states. For example, notification state. If you have action for uh, starting a notification, you need that on multiple pages, right? You Whenever you want to display a notification, you just call that action. So that needs to be reusable. So we need to write some sort of reusable function that we can directly call. And second is, what if you want to, do multiple things alongside dispatch? Let's say in here, just to address that person's question, and I was going to address this anyway, is that to when you refresh this page, the state is completely gone, right? In here, there are multiple things. In a real life app, you would populate your state with some backend data. The component is loaded, and then you would, load that. You will make an API call, get the data, store it in or update in the Redux, and you get it here. But here we don't have a backend. I don't, for the sake of time and simplicity, I don't intend to use any backend. I'm just going to store this whatever symbol I've stored in local storage. Local storage is just a browser, basically store it in a browser and then use it from there. Whenever, and because it local storage is basically a persistent storage, even if I close my browser, open this domain again, it's scoped to a domain. That storage will still be there, that value will still be there, and I will get that value. So that's what I'm going to do. Uh, Whenever I basically update a state using dispatch, I also want to update the value in local storage so that I keep my storage in sync. And if I don't have a reusable function, it will be hard to replicate. Even if let's say I write it here like local storage dot set item, and then I write ABC and then value. So by the way, local storage only accepts string value, so you have to stringify because value is an array, so you have to stringify it. This logic needs to be reusable so that it can be reused at multiple places, and it could be combined in a single function call rather than writing copy pasting the whole thing again and again. That's why we are going to have another folder called actions in Redux only. That's where we are going to define the actions for individual states. So I had a app reducer. I will also have app actions. In here, I will define any function I want. That function will only have one requirement, that it needs to return action. So let's call it update symbols. Okay, and it needs to return a app action. App action is coming from this reducer, this basically. So let me, oh, I'm not exporting it, so I have to export this. Okay, we have app action. Now we have this, and you can accept anything you want here. This is just like a function that we are going to call here. Basically this, and then I'm going to copy this logic instead of being here. Uh, and instead, I will not have dispatch here. I will need to return this action instead. And then this value, let's accept that it as a parameter. You can have either string value, or if because if you just do string value, it will just because payload can, as we have defined it here, payload can only be type of allowed symbols. So and string is not assignable to these because string could have any arbitrary value. So if you had like a string array here, it would not be an issue. But since we have this, I have to define value as that only. But if you want to simplify this, you can do string array here. But if not, then because this is also a reusable type, so you can define it here as well. Uh, Allow symbols type, and then just this. This will be enum, and then let's export this type from here and get it here. So now this is symbols is a allowed types array. Payload is also allowed types array. Value is also allowed type array. Okay. And set item, I have written ABC, but it's better to give a proper name and store it as a constant so that whenever you set it from multiple places or get it from multiple places, you don't do a spelling mistake in the because it will be hard to debug. If I write it ABC and when I do get item, I write like ABCD. It happens sometimes when you have bigger application. It's better to define constants. So you write like storage key symbols, and then you can write like whatever symbols or selected symbols. You can give it any name. Just export this variable, and then instead of hard coding it, just write it here. Okay. I store it in local storage and then return the action. And then let's export this function. Now this is a reusable function. I can reuse it multiple times. All I have to do is uh, provide it the value, and then basically, and see this is also value of this only, and this also accepts it. So these are two type compatibles, and that's a very strong typing that we have here. And instead of calling dispatch directly, you call dispatch with this. That's all. You want to dispatch this particular action. And because this returns action, basically this ends up being passed to dispatch. And now this is reusable. Now, wherever I want to update symbols, I have basically done that abstraction or encapsulated this whole logic of updating in local storage as well as calling the action in this whole function and then call dispatch. Call it anywhere you want, and that's now reusable. So this is done, and now if I save it and show you that it is same as that. Also, let me show you the local storage here. So go to in Chrome, if you go to application tab and local storage, go to domain. Right now there's O token and whatnot. Clear it. Settings, and if I select something, let's say BTC, you see it is stored now BTC. And if I refresh, uh, right now if I go to settings, you'll see empty because I've set this local storage, but I'm not getting it back. I'm not fetching it. So the way you can do it is you want to do it on app loading, right? So as I said, like you would generally want to do it with your backend, but here we don't have a backend. So what I will do is I'll do write a use effect. I'll also explain use effect for those who don't know. Use effect basically a hook provided by React that allows us to do things as if or based on effects. For example, let's say you want to do something when component has been mounted or basically rendered, then you want to do something. So in that case, when our application is loaded, I want to now get this data from local storage and update my global storage, sorry, Redux store. Then that's what I want to do. The way you do it is it accepts two things. Let me write this like this, A and B. A is a function that basically tells you what you want to do. In the function, you write your logic. B is an array, something called dependency array. I'll explain what it is. Let me write A first. In A, what do I want to do? I want to first get the data from local storage. So let's say uh, symbols from ls as in local storage, and then local storage dot get, because I have defined that as a constant. So let's use that. Now it could be either a string or null, because it may happen that local storage doesn't have that item at all when you maybe loaded the application very first time. It didn't have anything, or maybe you cleared your local storage. Then something like that happens. So you have to check it that it exists, and if it does, then you just want to update your global storage, right? So the way you do, as I explained, you get dispatch function first using the use dispatch, and then you just dispatch it using that function update symbols. And like I just showed you, right? This is reusable. We have used it on settings page as well as on Redux. So that's why it's better to have these functions separate, and so that they're highly reusable. And because symbols is a string, so you have to decode it with JSON.parse. because when we store it, we do stringify, right? So you have to pass it as well, and then just update the store. Now for B, I'm going to write as empty array here. Basically, what B is that this if this effect or this work, let's call it work, is a work is going to be performed. When it is going to be performed is controlled by this array. If you don't give it anything, if you skip that array, then this will be performed every time this function re-renders. And when does it re-render? When, let's say, state is updated or something else happens, and this is re-rendered, then this effect will be called. But we don't want to call it every time, right? We only want to just populate our state on when application loads. So you just pass an empty array. Empty array is basically, I am telling React, there is no dependency of this effect or anything else. So just do it once and forget it. If you had, let's say, let's maybe skip more explanation about use effect. This is how we are using it. So let's keep it to that only. If time permits, I'll explain more. So that's that. So what React will do is the moment I load my application, let me refresh. It executed this, updated my state, and we can check that by going to settings, and you see BTC is there. BTC was in there, it is here. Let me maybe let's say I update it here. It is there in logo storage. If I refresh now, you will see that settings, it is here because it is populated in state, right? So that's how, and as I said, in real backend, instead of just getting it from local storage, you will be getting it from some sort of backend API. That's the only change. Everything else remains the same. Cool. So we have the settings logic. We can update it. We can set it. The only remaining part now is that using this state on latest prices page, connect to this Coinbase API and get the data. So let's do the last missing part. So far we have seen Redux, TypeScript, React, and then now we are going to use how to use WebSockets with React and get that data. So I'll stop here to see any questions. It's already 9:40, so we only have about 20 minutes. So I'll just quickly take any questions. How does it know where to dispatch? What do you mean where? Where is basically, it's up to you when you define. For example, I'm dispatching in on settings page, so that's me defining where to dispatch. So that's like business logic. And in app also, whenever this is loaded, I dispatch it here. What do you need to dispatch? You have to pass it in dispatch, and that my use symbols is giving it. Uh, that's why use symbols is giving returning this action, right? You could also have a clear symbols that doesn't take anything but needs to return a app action, and it returns this action, right? Clear. And because it's clear, you don't need to give it any payload. And when you do logout, just make sure you call this function in dispatch, just like dispatch, and then clear, like clear symbol, and that's it. You have cleared the state. That's basically the logic here, right? I hope that answers your question. Anything else? Let me see. Any other question? Otherwise, let's move on to using Coinbase API. Okay, I don't see anything. So yeah, let's move on. So to use WebSockets, let's see. First, let me just do the basic UI part first, how we want to show it, and then like just like prettify it, and then we will implement the logic. I want to basically use a list of all the symbols I had. I want to render them in a list. So I will use a list component from and design. A list is basically, you can render a list like this. So I will have like the symbol name and the values here. So let's say use something like this. What is the data source? Data source are all the symbols. And how do you get symbols? Symbols from storage. You're right. Use selector. State is of type root state, and root state dot app dot use symbols. Right. So these are symbols. So let's pass these. And this is one symbol. Like this is render item for one particular, like one row of this list. And you'll see symbol. Or I have to import list first. Symbol is of now type BTC or USD because that's what symbols array is, right? So that's the power of TypeScript here. It tells us like what it could be. So instead of these, I will just use the symbol. Don't need a description. Just use a title of symbol name itself. No avatar. Content. Yeah, let's just keep content. Let's see what it gives. So I have BTC, USD, Ethereum, some content. Instead of content, let's because we want to write, selling price and other prices. So let's use. There's something called a uh, statistics component in here. Let me find it. Yeah. So it allows us to, just nicely render this much. So let's use this. So let's say two stats. One, the buy price, and the other one is sell price. And then value, just keep, 1 or 0 0 for now. Doesn't matter. No precision. Write a prefix. Again, this is not something React specific. This is only how you use and design components. So you don't need to remember these props or anything that I'm writing it. It's already there in the library itself. So yeah, 0 0 0 0. Instead of 0 0, I just now want to render the actual price. By the way, now if I go to settings and let's say I don't want to keep track of Ethereum anymore, I clear it, come back latest prices. This is gone. Only BTC is there. So that's now you see the state is now actually uh, uh, you know with Redux it is shared between multiple pages. Let's keep both. Now, to get the real data, we need to connect to the Coinbase API, right? So let's create a function. Uh, so in WebSocket, as I explained, it's basically a two-step process. Uh, First, you basically open a connection with the WebSocket API. Then you basically start sending messages, right? Two-step. So first, you need to let's call it start. Yeah, let's call it start. Start is going to now here I need to create a WebSocket connection. Now WebSocket is this is a native browser API, so we can use that. Now the endpoint was WebSocket secure and then WSFeed dot exchange dot coinbase.com. That's the endpoint. Now let's store it in a variable. Let's call it maybe connection. This is the WebSocket connection. It has not established. First, you need to write on open. Basically, the moment you open a connection, what do you want to do? You can specify that in a function here. And the moment connection, some message is received from the server, this function will be called. And you can specify what do you want to do with that message. Now I have start. Now let's also maybe have stop. Because you don't want to keep the connection alive. Let's say I'm on this page, you start listening, but I go to settings page, then you would want to close that connection, right? Why do you need to keep that connection open when you're not even using that data or entering it? So you can, in that cases, you would want to close it. So let's also write a stop. Now to stop it, what Coinbase asks you is to send a unsubscribe message. So let me write two functions here, subscribe, and I need a reference to this connection. So let me store this connection in a ref. So let's say connection use ref, and it will be a WebSocket. And I will, instead of storing it in local variable, I will set it to the ref instead. Connection.current. If you don't know about ref, it's basically just a variable that stays the same between re-renders. State is when you want latest value of the state and you update it. Connection is when, because if I update the connection value here, it doesn't cause a re-render. It is only a reference. Ref is basically a reference to some variable in memory, and it stays the same for whenever, as long as this component is mounted. So I store it here, and now I can access it here. Connection dot this exists, and then I would want to basically send a message to server. When I subscribe, I want to let the Coinbase API know that I want to subscribe. So you send a message. And by the way, you see a question mark here. That is because current value could either be a WebSocket, which is set here, but it could also be undefined where you don't set it or the value has not been set yet. So that's why you need question mark. What it basically do is that if this value exists, then it will proceed further, like call the send method. But if it doesn't, it will break the change. It's called optional chaining. Basically, you make it optional. Proceed after if this value exists. If it doesn't, then it will break the change. It will stop here only. Here only. Okay. It's same as if you do it like a if condition. If connection dot current, then you do connection dot current dot send. You see, in that case it didn't add the in that case you see current value is WebSocket, but in here current value could be WebSocket or undefined. TypeScript is smart enough to know or infer the value that what it could be. So this is same as this. Okay, now I want to send a message. You can only send string messages in here, so I have to stringify whatever I want to send as an object. In object I will send type as subscribe. Product IDs, I'm taking these from what they you see they request, they expect this request. So let me even copy it from here. Okay, this is what they expect. And instead of these hard-coded product IDs, what I want is these specific symbols that are in my state. If it is only Ethereum, then only Ethereum. It is 2, 2. Then it is 10, then we need 10 symbols. So let's use that. There is also just like subscribe, there is also unsubscribe. Let's also write that. We copy it. Unsubscribe. Instead of subscribe, you just say unsubscribe. You specify the product IDs and the channel you want to unsubscribe to. That's the only difference. And this is also coming from Coinbase API only. I'm sure if you see somewhere, you'll find it in the documentation. I know it, so I'm just writing it directly. When do you want to subscribe? When you open the connection. The moment connection is open, you want to call subscribe. Okay, I've provided a reference and set it to on open. So as soon as connection is opened or established, subscribe will be called. And when do you want to unsubscribe? Whenever this stop function is called. So let's maybe call it here. Okay, and when you stop it, then it's best to close the connection as well. Connection.current. That's how just like send, it also has a close method. Close is basically uh, when you close the WebSocket connection, right? So that the connection is no longer there. And then also reset the reference. Let us set it to undefined. Okay. And when do you want now? When do you want to call this stop function? Whenever this component is unmounted. So again, use effect. Return. Now don't worry about this. syntax or anything. Just assume that this is called whenever this component is unmounted, we will call stop function. You could even have like buttons here. Let's say I have a button here that says, uh, stop explicitly. And I can have that also on click stop. Let me also type primary. And I could also even have like start button. These are hand design, right? Button is empty there. So start, stop, and then you see in this one you can call start. So I will have start and then I will stop. And then let's do this much first and let's see what do we get. Go to network tab to see these requests. Remove any filtering, disallows, disengage. Let me close this. Okay, I'll start and stop. If I start it, you see that I'm making a call to WebSocket, this Coinbase API. I'm asking it to upgrade the connection to a WebSocket connection. Basically, upgrade to WebSocket. That's basic networking. If you know, if you don't know, don't worry about it. And if you go to messages tab, these are the messages that I'm sending. The very first message, this subscribe message that I sent on subscribe. This is what it is. I sent this message channels, product ID as these because these are in my state and type subscribe. And after that, first message is sent. This is sent by server. So they send some basic information that these are your subscriptions. And then they start sending the data. This data that you see here, this is now constantly being sent to me by server. There are constantly messages coming up like every second or so. Now I want to consume these messages, and to consume them, and as I said, like on messages function that will receive this message from server, and we can consume it. And as I have start. Let me also show you stop. If I stop it, you see I have sent this unsubscribe message, and I've stopped receiving any message after that. I've unsubscribed to it, and I've closed the connection. This connection is closed now, right? I can start it again. You see, if I do start, I start receiving it again. And instead of calling stop, if I go to settings, you'll see the unsubscribe is still called because of that use effect hook that we had here. As I said, this is called when component is unmounted or basically removed when you go to some other component. So this is still called. So this is good to have that secured that if you navigate away from the page, it's better to stop the connection. Now let's see if I have only BTC, come back, uh, start again. In this case, you will see that I only ask for BTC. That's coming from state. Whatever I set in settings, I get that. Now, the only last and missing piece is that, let's use that data that we get from network, start populating it in this buy and sell price, right? But let me just do a very quick styling here. Margin, right? And let's give it 8 pixel. All right. So as I said, on message will, receive the message itself that is coming from the server. So let's define the type for it. So it will be something called message event. Now this is TypeScript thing. And this message will be, because as I said, WebSocket send and receive string data so that it will be string. Now when you do e dot data, you will see that it is of type string, message type. You have to decode it because as I showed you, it was like JSON response. So you can decode it to have the actual data, JSON pass, and this will be right now it will be any. But if you want to give it specific type, you can if you know that, for example, if you know that your API is going to send this type of data only, then you can define that type. That type message data equal to. Now these are hard-coded values, but it is number, and it is just string. It is also string, and rest of the things are string number, whatever. But I don't care about the other values. I only wanted the price, and there was also side. So I don't care about sequence. If you don't care about something, you can feel free to remove it. So uh, if you only care about these many types, you include these many only. Type is this product. It could also be, as I showed you, the first one was subscriptions. It could be subscription or ticker. So we have to handle it accordingly. And then side could be either buy or sell. And the price and then product ID. I don't even care about product ID, so ignore it. So price side, buy, sell. Actually, I care about product ID because either it will be BTC or Ethereum. That depends on whatever symbol it was sent for. Now tell TypeScript that it is not any, but it is message data. So you get that type here. Now you can start using this variable. Start dot type is ticker. Then you want to basically store this data in your state. So let's create a state. How do you want to store it? I want to store it like an object. So BTC will have a buy price uh, and then a sell price. Similarly, other something else like Ethereum will have similarly buy and sell. So something of this sort. So when you want to define an object, the way you define it in TypeScript is you write something called record. So let me define the type here. Type prices record. Record is basically like an object where key is the first variable is the key. What could be the key? Either it is string or number. It could be anything you want. If you want like very specific enums, you can write like A and then B, whatever you write. Like let me write it like this and just to explain you. And next will be the value. The value would be buy a string and sell a string. Now, if I create an object based on this, let's say const y prices, then you'll see that I can only write A as the key and then value I have to provide like buy, then sell, that's it. But I also have to provide B here, right? And then similarly. But if you don't want to, restrict yourself, so you can write just string here, and then you can write anything you want, A, B, C, whatever. It is allowed. That's how you define an object. Now I want to store these prices, set prices, either buy or sell, but prices, use state, type these prices, and then initially it will be empty because initially I will not have anything, right? Initially I will not have anything. Let's write a function that will update the prices, that will take symbol as string, side, whether it is buy or sell, and a price, which is a string. And then or comma, it is to comma, and then this is my function, and this update prices I'm going to call it right here. I'll pass data dot product is basically the symbol, data dot side is buy or sell, and then data dot price is the actual price, right? That's how I will call this function, and in this call function I will update my state, set prices. Now, if you know about set state a bit, then you know that it accepts a function that gives you access to the previous state and let you define the next state. The way I would next define next state is that basically previous, if previous has symbol, for example, if we already have data for uh, Bitcoin, so I get that for BTC or Ethereum, I get that data from object. I update the side either buy or sell to latest price, and then I return the previous value, comma new value. So symbol is data, right? But if it doesn't exist, then let's keep it as empty object. That's it. I save it here, come back, and let me started. So you see that I'm getting this data. I'm also getting storing this in state now. I just have to render it properly now. So how do you render it? You use this prices. As I said, whenever you update state, this variable will give you the latest value. So you just go here, instead of this hard-coded zero value, I'm going to say prices and then symbol dot buy. If buy may not exist, buy may not exist. Initially, when everything is empty, buy may not exist. So if it doesn't exist, write any. Similarly, here I will do sell. If it doesn't exist, then any. This is uh, basically uh, basically defaulting. If this is null or undefined, then it will fall back to this any. Okay. So it is giving me some value. Let me refresh this page. Oh, there is some sort of TypeScript error, I guess. By it is by symbol. Oh, it may not exist at all. The symbol may not exist at all. So I have to write optional chaining here as well, this question mark, because it could be undefined, right? So you have to write that as well. And if it doesn't, so you get any. Initially you get any, but the moment you do start getting data, you'll see that you got buy price, and then after some sort of event, you get sell price, and then it is now constantly updated. As you get data from server, it is getting updated and you get the data here. I stop it, and let's also get Ethereum here as well. Come back. I get NANA, empty. And then I started. I connect with server, and after some time I start getting data, and then here you go. You get the buy price, you get the sell price for both of these. So yep, that marks the end of our app. This is what we wanted to achieve. The all If for anything or any other symbols, just extend those symbols in this constant here, and rest of the application will just work without any change. I can add another symbol here. It will be supported here as well as in settings. Select it, start getting the price for it, right? So that covers our application. We saw basically four things: React, TypeScript, Redux, and WebSockets. And how to get the data. There are, of course, so much more to learn and scope here. So yeah, I'll discuss about that now. First, let me see if there are any questions.
One question is there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead. Ask your question.
No, no, I'm just telling you. Ajay,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
There is in line 20 you've written just subscribe. It's subscribe. Oh, you're asking this one. Let's see. This one. So I am this on open is basically I'm giving reference to this function to on open. You can, if you want to write a function, then you can write it like this also. But I've defined this function already as subscribe function, so I'm only giving it or assigning it. I'm only giving it a reference to it. I don't need to call it. On open will be called once the connection has been established, not right now. Okay. Uh, so all right, let's see. Can you explain use ref once more? So use ref is basically, as I said, like price. Whenever you want to keep a state and it updates a value or something like that, and that value can change on re-renders. Then you use prices, and this reference to this variable is created every time it re-renders. I'm not going to too many technical analyses here for the sake of time, but basically this reference can change. This right now, let's say this memory reference is ABC whatever in memory. Next on re-render it could be this. Okay, but connection reference remains the same. It is the same variable. You can pass it down as many levels as you want, and it will remain same. It avoids the closure issue that we have in JavaScript. You'll not have to sometimes even solve closure issues. We use ref, and that's what it is. It is basically a mutable data that you can mutate. You can change it, but the reference names remains the same across re-renders. All right, so that's use ref optional chaining. Optional chaining, I hope explained optional chaining. Basically, the idea here is that where it is? Yeah, for example, this one. If this exists, then proceed ahead. Basically, call close on this function. If it doesn't, stop it here. Stop here. Don't proceed in the chain of calls up. For example, let's say you have some sort of nested object here. A, B, C, and then D. But let's say B could be undefined. So, but you want to access C. So if you write like A dot B dot C and you expect to get D, but what if B is undefined? What if B is undefined? Then this will throw error, right? When it will say that C of undefined is C of B is undefined and whatever some sort of runtime error you'll get.
C of
But if
undefined, yeah.
yeah, but if you write it like this, optional chaining, then it will see that if B is defined, it is not null and it is not undefined, then try to access dot C. If it is undefined, break it here and then return undefined. It will return undefined right here. That's basically optional chain. It helps to avoid these runtime issues. Okay, what else? I think that's of it is same. You have written double question mark. Yep. So in optional chaining itself, uh, for example, I write it like this, right? If it exists, then you go to D. But if it indeed happens that, let's say you stop here or you stop here or for any reason, you get undefined or null out of this, then you can specify a default value. If basically what I'm trying to say is if this value of this expression, if I say like const x equal to this, if value of this whole expression at any point is null or undefined, then you can specify a default value using this. So it will not use this. If I write it like const x equal y equal to x double question mark here, then if x is not null or not undefined, then x will be used. But if x is null or undefined, then empty string will be used. If I use like ABC, then this is going to be used. That's what it means. And wherever I used it, let me show you where I did. For example, if this whole thing is undefined, then I want to use NA as the value. That's what it means. Okay. Yeah, nullish coalescing operator. I hope that answers your question. Cool, guys. That's everything for this session. And now, just a quick announcement for, as we said, uh, this was, whatever you just saw was basically using 4 technologies. But as I said, like was the hands-on session. This was not the whole explanation. So if you're like beginner to this whole thing, if you are looking for more depth, theory part of it, then we have a course for this one. So I'm just going to show you the course, and it's up to you, explore it. Feel free to enroll if you're interested in learning more about this. And I'm also going to show you what we are going to cover there. So if you go to OpenDesk website, opendesk.in, go to courses. There are many courses that we have. We have YouTube courses on YouTube as well, which are like free React Redux Node.js. We are covering there, but we also have live courses here. Webinar were part of this. We have this Node.js course coming up as well as this React course coming up. React Redux and TypeScript. In this Redux, we will be using Redux Toolkit, which is even nowadays the recommended way of writing Redux by even official Redux team. So we are going to cover that. We are going to cover React version 18, which is the latest, not the old stuff, with 16 or classes or anything like that. Only the latest thing, and TypeScript course. That course is going to start from, if you open this course, you'll see plenty of things. It is a 5 week course starting from April 15. It will be in English only, same English as like the way I'm explaining now, in basic English only. Expected end date is May 20, that's like 5 weeks. In courses, we start with JavaScript refresher. We teach you TypeScript basics as well as advanced. So whoever, if you are not getting too much TypeScript in this webinar, then this course will help you with TypeScript. We'll start from scratch only. Then we'll cover all of React, with basics, with intermediate and advanced. We will also use Redux Toolkit here. And then along the whole course, we'll build 3 projects, Dear Diary. For this one was crypto trading market, but we'll also build an Indian stock market tracker using same set of concepts here. And the Jira clone, if you know Jira is a bug tracking software, you must have been using it at your job, if maybe. Uh, these 3 projects, and then at the end, there is a final kind of capstone project. That is basically, we build these 3 projects, we show you how to build, how to use technologies. But this one is basically, you create on your own with your own ideas. We only help you. If you are stuck here anywhere, if you need ideas, we will provide you with basic ideas. Like you could build this or you build that, some ideas, but you basically build on your own. And if you do that, you get a certificate at completion. But if you submit your capstone project as well, it will be mentioned as an accomplishment on your certificate, and will get extra perks as well. If you may get interviews and extra perks based on this submission only. If you submit, then you get extra perks than other people in the course. Cool. So that's the overall timeline. These are the 4 projects. As I said, this is how Jira clone will look like. These are screenshots from the actual project that we built in our last class also. Stock tracker, Dear Diary, and the caption project. If you are interested, then you go to this registration form, fill in. If you by the way, if you are registered for this one and you refer someone, there's a referral bonus of 50 rupees per referral. The more people you refer, you get on every referral you get 50. If they register, you get 50 rupees back. Then you register for this course, and then that's it. We take the course uh, forward, and the fees for this one is 1499, and this is early bird fees. The original cost was 1800, but we're offering it for 1499 only for limited seats, uh, starting with 15, right? So you have almost 2 weeks. So if you register now, in the very first week, you'll get this discount. And if you are a student, then the cost is reduced to even down further to 1199. But given that you provide your valid student ID so that we can verify that you are a student, and then you get the discount. And that's basically all it. These are some of the students that we have taught in the past in our previous batches as well. You can connect with them on their LinkedIn or see their feedback. This is a snapshot of the certificate that you'll get. And also join our Discord. I am sure you are on our WhatsApp group as well. But join both of these 2 groups. And if you have like any question, you can refer these FAQ or directly reach out to us in any of our groups or email us. We'll be happy to help.